listeners. I'm Ralph Newell, your host this week, and I have with me David Hayes, president of Coe College in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Coe College was in the inaugural cohort of institutions receiving the DOIT certification. And for those of you unfamiliar with DOIT, it stands for the Diverse Organizational Impact and Transformation. We had over 300 schools across the country start the process. And when it was all said and done, after, what we considered a rigorous review and looking at the documentations that all the schools submitted, Coe was one of only 3 schools to get the certification. So less than 1% made the grade. So again, President Hayes, I congratulate you and Coe College. Unfortunately, you were not able to be with us at the ceremony last month in Baltimore when we presented these certifications, but we thank you for sending Donald Jamal, who was in attendance, your Chief Diversity Officer, and he represented you all quite well. So with that, I just want to say welcome, President Hayes.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me a few minutes of your time today, and I look forward to our conversation.
Before we get into the conversation, talking about these nuts and bolts kind of issues, I wanted to give our audience a chance to learn a little bit about yourself, so indulge me with some of these questions. They're probably some of the ones that you aren't used to getting, I guess, on typical interviews. So the first one I want to ask you is, so I avoid asking you this later, what is the one question that you wish people would ask you less?
The one question people would ask me less right now in this hour of our days, there's lots of challenges for every organization across the board, and higher ed is doing a little bit of a reinvention right now. And the one question people consistently ask is, or more of a statement, I suppose, wow, what a time to be a new college president. You get a chance to pick when they put you in the game, right? That's one thing that I guess I don't have a particularly great answer for when people ask me that, but I kind of turn it around and just say that I'm thankful for the opportunity. And when else would you rather be trying to put your shoulder into an institution to move it forward and keep it healthy and vibrant than a time of challenge? And with the disruption of the last several years, and you're seeing this in your own industry, it gives you a chance to be a little bit creative and bold in your vision, and gives a chance to help move forward. And so I've kind of tried to really lean into that answer and it's always asked in a really well-intentioned way. And oftentimes by somebody who's got they got their own challenges in their own world, and I think they're looking to just kind of share some stories around the concerns of the day in terms of the challenges in our country and our industries and our businesses, institutions, et cetera. So that's the one question I kind of get flat-footed at with all the time around here. So.
Okay. All right. Well, my next one is the easy one then.
Okay.
Tell us about where you grew up.
Sure. So I'm a little bit of an odd duck. I grew up about 10 minutes from the campus that I serve as president. So I wasn't born in Cedar Rapids. I was born in a little Iowa town called Eldora, Iowa. And when I was about 1 year old, my family moved to Cedar Rapids, and went to high school here in town. And then by kind of a process that would make an admission counselors cringe because it wasn't very logical or timely, I ended up at Coe College, and it proved to be just the absolute best step for me. It was a place where I felt supported. I had a chance to find out what I was maybe had some talents at, but more importantly, maybe where I wasn't all that talented or had less interest. And so have a lot of loyalty to Coe because I've lived it. And then went off to all the way down to Iowa City, Iowa, which is about 20 minutes from here to attend law school. I actually had a couple of rounds down at the University of Iowa, first to JD and then subsequently an LLM after a few years. And then loaded up the car and made the arduous journey right back to Cedar Rapids and started to practice law for a firm here in town called Shuttleworth and Ingersoll. When I was in law school, I had the opportunity, was invited by a former professor of mine at Coe to team teach a course with him in law and economics. And that kind of got the bug going for me to maybe teach. And after a while, I was doing a little bit of legal work for the college and doing some teaching as an adjunct. And the then president invited me back to the college and said, why don't you teach full time, do a little administrative work? And that got me right back to Coe. So I haven't gone very far. I've sure worn a lot of different hats along that way, though. I've been student, alum, parent, donor, staff, faculty, just about everything. So until I'm a retiree and an estate planning gift, I want to stop right there. So I've been very, very fortunate to grow in one place and be a part of one community my entire professional career. So
that's good. I'm glad you said that, because actually I got a question for you in regards to that a little later here. But, back to the childhood part there in Cedar Rapids. As a child, what was the most ridiculous thing that you believed?
Oh, that's another good question. Well, probably not just as a child, but maybe more into middle age, junior high, and maybe I haven't quite given up on it. But I was absolutely sure I'd be either a major league catcher, or I was pretty sure I'd play drums for Pearl Jam at some point. But neither of those things have worked out because of maybe poor contact information available or a profound lack of talent. I'm not sure which one of those two things have stopped that from happening. But that's funny. Those would be a couple of things I was misguided in terms of where I thought I'd end up. So
okay, so you had those dreams and goals. So what about what would be the next thing on your bucket list you want to cross off?
Yeah, next thing on my bucket list would be so I, like a lot of people, I enjoy traveling and being outdoors. I like to fly fish, and I've done quite a bit of that in different chapters of my life, including spending some summers out west. And I just have always really enjoyed that. Haven't had a chance to do a whole ton of it here the last few years. And so there's a couple of spots I'd like to go back to. I usually hear people talk about wanting to go to someplace new, but I'd like to go revisit some places that I fished 20, 30 years ago. It's been a lot of change in the American West in terms of growth and development. And I'd like to take some time and go explore again. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I've never, my father's into fishing. I never really got into it, but my brother and I will go with him just to indulge and spend that quality time.
Sure.
And I didn't go with them on this trip, but they did a fly fishing trip somewhere up in the uninhabited areas of Canada.
There you go.
They had a ball. I mean, they were saying they were like in these remote places that people seem like have never been, staying in cabins and camping. But so yeah, just a couple more silly questions.
You bet.
But it's every day seems like it's a national day for something. So today is actually National Orange Juice Day. So in the morning, are you OJ or coffee?
Yeah, there's too much to get done to not live a caffeinated life. So my list of vices is getting shorter by the day, but the one that is firmly entrenched near the top is I drink way too much coffee.
Way too much coffee.
Several years ago, I like a lot of us, you start checking some boxes, and one of mine was a little bit of high blood pressure. No big deal, easy to control. But my physician at the time was an old friend of my father's, so he was kind of giving me the avuncular pat on the back. I knew you when you were a kid type of speech. And he said, you really need to drink less coffee. And I said, Doc, there are other physicians in this town. So we reached a compromise where he said, well, why don't you start drinking half and half? So some decaf mixed in with your beans in the morning to at least give yourself a chance. So nothing against orange juice. It's got its time and its place, but and I've noticed your mug flashing a little bit too. So my guess is you're right with me on the coffee side. So
yes, but I'm not drinking coffee this time. It's a little late in the afternoon, but not that I haven't drank coffee in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Actually, which is weird. I'm actually drinking ginger ale today.
There Well,
it,
it could be National Ginger Ale Day tomorrow, and then you're actually
probably,
ahead of the curve, right? Yeah.
yeah. But it's also National Star Wars Day
Oh
today.
yeah, May the 4th be with you, right?
Exactly. Oh,
Yeah.
you know what? There, bingo.
Yeah.
I was wondering
Yeah,
why it
you
was
bet.
today. I got it. You just
Yep.
May the 4th. That probably
Yep.
is exactly what it is.
Yep.
So, of all the movies, the series, or characters, what's your favorite from the Star Wars?
So I'm 52, and folks my age walked into that theater when we were pretty young, didn't really know what we were getting into,
Same here.
and that music started, and that famous scene of the stars moving and the text, and that first movie, which I guess is number 4, which we came to
Right.
learn later, right? That first movie, man, when that started up, that was just the coolest thing ever. And I think all of us that were that age were just hooked at that point. So I guess I'm the original.
Mm-hmm.
And if you got to pick anything, that first movie, I think everybody wanted Chewbacca as a friend, right? By the
Oh
end of
yeah,
it,
yeah. Chewbacca
you
was a
just
good
wanted
one.
him to be your buddy, and if you're learning to drive, and if you had him hanging out with you as you're mowing around town, that'd be awesome, right? So
Exactly.
yeah. So how about you? Is that your favorite one too, or are you one of the other
I
ones?
don't know if he was my favorite. I think Return of the Jedi was my favorite of the movies, I think.
Yeah.
And probably the only reason I'm saying it is because I just saw it again recently. I just caught it on TV one weekend.
Sure.
But from a character standpoint of watching them all through again now, I'm not saying he's my favorite, but I like, gosh, why am I drawing a blank? What's the droid guy? Not
Oh,
C3PO, the other one. Huh?
yeah, the R2D2.
No, not RTD2, the other one.
Oh, C3PO, that guy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
why. I think I picked up on his wittiness and the quips he made and all that. I was like, I kind of like this guy.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
But,
and I mean, you're carrying enough there that it would be pretty helpful to have a guy like that following you around, right? Where on any
yeah,
given day you could get a little extra help from the robot. That would be pretty great, right?
yeah, he was good. But
Yeah.
cool. All right, well, cool. But and you alluded to this earlier, and I guess you are what they would call at Coe or any other place that you've been for a long time, a lifer.
Yeah.
So, your class of 93, as you mentioned earlier, so you've gone from there to president. So in the past, you've been a student, faculty, senior administrator, all of that. So is there anything from your days as a student that you said to yourself, oh man, I would change this, that you have actually made that change as a president? Or
Yes, but
any
it
other
wasn't.
steps
Yeah,
along the way?
yeah, for sure. There's some things that have evolved that I certainly have said, hey, I think we need to do this, but by no means do I want to suggest that it was because of me pushing anything one way or the other. But I was part of a group of faculty that launched the environmental studies major here at Coe. It's a collateral studies program.
Mm-hmm.
And made real good use of. Coe owns and operates a wilderness field station north of Ely, Minnesota, right on the edge of the Boundary Waters Wilderness area, and that had always been a kind of a gem of the college, and I was able to develop some courses that appealed to non-science majors, some environmental protection courses and policy, and teach out of the field station as a part of the environmental studies program. So. That was not something that was directly available to me when I was here as a student, and would get a little bit jealous of my science buddies when they would go up there and have a summer in the wilderness studying, botany or ornithology or something like that, where I had no chance. And so that's been one nice thing. And I'd say the emerging awareness of Coe around sustainability and green practices has been something I've always was interested in as a student, and being a part of that progression's been fun too. So,
Okay. Last fall, sort of as the lead up to the DOIT certification, through that process, we were looking at four different pillars. I'm also proud to say that Coe College was the only school that scored a grade of B or higher on all four pillars. So, we commend you for that. But the one where you guys scored the highest was institutional leadership and commitment, which was the first pillar. And when I interviewed Dr. Paula O'Loughlin last year, and we talked about that on In the Margins. And she gave a lot of credit to your predecessor, Dr. David McAnally. She said he made DEI a cornerstone of Coe's strategic plan, and so he set the foundation. But she did say, but under your stewardship, you have continued it, and you guys are continuing along that path. So, why have you decided, or did you decide to continue in that direction? And what's been the biggest challenge so far with doing that?
Yeah, well, let me first pause and acknowledge those two names that you mentioned, both Dave McAnally, now retired, Coe's 15th president. He just brought and Coe was working in all these areas previously and was doing some good things. But Dave just brought a fresh conversation to the campus, and we took a different approach to strategic planning than we had in the past. And again, not saying one better than the other, but just the way Dave approached his work. By embedding diversity, equity, inclusion as one of the bedrocks of that strategic plan, I think that just changed our trajectory. So all credit to him. And just as an example of what I mean by that, my role under Dave was vice president for advancement. So that's external relationships, fundraising, that type of thing. Was able to have lots of conversations with prospective donors about endowment gifts and annual fund gifts that directly support the work of the college in those important areas. And the ability to pair with Dave McAnally, so the two Daves, right? The pairing with Dave McAnally, as I was doing my work as an advancement VP, around issues that directly advance what we were working on was really pretty important. And as I've talked to other colleagues, I don't think that's always happened in some other schools. So that was one important part, and just kind of an example of how that shaped our work over his time here. And then Paula, I think in large measure was attracted to Coe because of our work that we were trying to accomplish, and brought just a really great ability to do what's next, which sometimes is hard, right? She was always looking to the next idea, next strategy, next initiative that would help us on the faculty side and staffing side really begin to walk our path with a little more certainty. So in terms of why do it, I have to fall back on Coe was such a great experience for me as an undergrad. I have a lot of loyalty to Coe, and I literally want every student, faculty, staff, community member, alum to have that same feeling of gratitude towards the college because they feel like the college added value to their lives. And unless you examine the actual experience that people are having in an environment such as an institution of higher ed, you're not gonna check that box, right? So it really boils down to college should be a transformative experience for the good in your life that gives you an opportunity to meet people who have a lot of different perspectives, experiences, hopes, dreams, worldviews, etc. And that should shape you as a person when you leave our campus. And it's all blended together in terms of the reason we exist is to support our students and explore with them. And we're on the journey right there with them, explore with them what it means to build community. And so unless you're considering these other things, right, you're just not going to accomplish that. So that's where it really comes from.
Interesting. No, it's good. I mean, like I said, we started with 300 plus schools looking at this, and then we got down to the top 10 and, obviously the final three. I looked at all these institutions as like, okay, these are people that get it and they don't have problems. Now, I know one of the things we talked about with the certification is it's only good today,
Exactly.
It's good for 3 years. And and if you guys wanted to get again, you'll have to apply again in 3 years, because a lot could change, not just in 3 years, in just a year. Sometimes stuff happens overnight. And so when I thinking about my conversation that I had with Paula last year, and she was talking about what Dr. McAnally was doing and the school was doing and all of that, I was surprised when I read the article that Lois did in the edition where we talked about the schools that got the certification. And she talked about, I'll just call it a big road bump that you guys hit with DEI in regards to, I'm assuming for your position, the hiring process for that, and the fallout that came, and you guys, apparently, took it head on and addressed the issues. So, and that's when you hired Jamal, Jamal, right? And so in his position as a DEI officer, you guys expanded his role on campus over his predecessor. So how did you expand his role as a diversity officer, and what other changes took place after you guys had the resignation of the trustees and the demands from the community there?
Yeah. So I'll speak about my own role in all of that. And, I think we all have these inflection points, and you have to decide how you're going to make use of them. Right. You can either just, as you said, lean into it and take it head on, or you can kind of just wait for it to simmer away. And we chose the former. And so what I tried to do, and there, there's lots of things that were happening during that time, and lots of conversations and different elements to that. But I decided to just focus on what I could do as president of the college. And so there were a series of individuals who were most directly involved with all of that. And so I reached out to them, either within their cohorts or their work groups, et cetera, or just as individuals. And I asked them all three questions. I said, I'd like you to tell me what Coe is doing that makes you feel welcome and supported at this place in such a way you feel like you can thrive. Second question was, what are we not doing? The exact same question, but the opposite. What are we doing that doesn't support you in terms of having the opportunities you hope to get from a place like Coe? And then the third thing was, what would you like to see me or have me know as president of Coe as we move forward? And it was a lot of time spent with individuals who, in lots of circumstances, had a lot of positive things to say, right? And so then it really became, okay, as a community where we're falling short, let's go after that as most closely and directly as we can. And one of the largest areas that we got feedback on in terms of a place that we knew we could make immediate changes, there was not a direct DEI representative on the senior team. We had a diverse senior team, but there wasn't one person at Coe whose portfolio was really focused like a laser on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so that's what launched a process where we took some different functions on campus and pulled them together and went out and conducted a search, which I thank my stars every day, resulted in Donald Jamal coming to Coe, because he's had a tremendous impact here. And he sits on the president's cabinet. And that was kind of an immediate step that we could take. I'd also like to just share that as we were going through that process, budgets are tight in higher ed right now, and recognizing that, our trustees made direct gifts that allowed us to increase the funding available for diversity, equity, inclusion programming immediately, as well as provide the funds for Donald's role at Coe. And I think that speaks toward the when you mention commitment of leadership, trustees are leaders too, right? And you have an opportunity to move the college forward in a very specific way with time, treasure, talent. You're awfully thankful that you have people around the table that help you do that. So, and I also don't want to say that there's not more work to be done from all those conversations. Certainly every day there's an area you recognize a chance to evolve and move forward. But those were some of the most immediate steps that came out of it. The other thing that, we have to have more conversation at Coe about, and I've talked with many other leaders, not just in higher ed, but everywhere. And I'm sure you run into this a lot too, is I don't know if it's a tension, but there's kind of a competing approach between, we're trying to bake notions of diversity, equity, inclusion into the fabric of Coe, right? So it's just everywhere. It's, any individual who comes to Coe feels immediately welcomed. But yet then you also know sometimes you need a dedicated person with a dedicated budget that's addressing particular needs or concerns. And I think Coe had opted for the former, where on any diversity, equity, inclusion event, there might be 4 or 5 different budget lines on campus that we draw from, right? Because there's so many offices and people working on it. The good part of that, Ralph, is a lot of stuff at Coe has happened holistically and kind of emerged from our students, faculty, and staff rather than top down.
Right.
But at the same time, if you say, okay, can you put your finger on the line that's going to support diversity, equity, inclusion? That looked pretty anemic, right? Because it was spread out through a whole bunch of different budgets. So we're kind of still playing with that a little bit in terms of what's that right balance, because it's an organizational goal, but it's also a specific function. Not to talk too much like a management geek, right? But when you're trying to move it in a direct way, these are some of the things you think about. So you kind of adopt the spirit and the belief that Coe can be better in this way. And then you look for the best way to accomplish it. And I think we learned some things about the best way to accomplish it over the course of the last couple of years. So, and again, not a finished product. We learn every day. Certainly have our own slips and mishaps and moments where you learn and grow as a community. But that's kind of how we, at least I took it as an opportunity. And, I try to come with a fair degree of humility to these conversations, right? Just because of who I am and my experiences. And it was a time of reflection for everybody at Coe. And I think we've moved forward with good momentum in some very direct ways. I'll just add, and this has been a really long answer, I apologize. I'll just add that I think one of the things that we had a better awareness of is things like what Diverse is doing around measuring progress and measuring initiative. So for example, we are just, again, participating in a community-based DEI survey for organizations and institutions in Lynn County, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, as a way to kind of benchmark ourselves to other businesses and institutions. We're going to do a campus climate survey and start doing that annually so we can measure our progress in a number of key parts of making it a better experience. So I think we got much more comfortable with the things that we're doing well. We need to really measure and advance, and in the same way, put that mirror up against our work and say, where can we get better and measure it? And so that's been a real shift as well, is to try to quantify it. And I know all of this stuff can't be reduced to a number. That's not the point. Right. But what matters gets measured in any organization that's successful. And so we're trying to do that as a part of this commitment.
Right. No, I mean, I had read in Lois's piece that you guys were planning a campus climate survey for this spring, this semester. And I was like, again, like, wow, they're not resting on their laurels. So I applaud you guys for that. And, just thinking about the other pillars, we're not going to get into all 4 of them. And for those of you who don't know them, I'm not going to get into them today, but definitely can go to our website, diverseeducation.com, click on Do It, and you can find out about the pillars. But another pillar that I just wanted to talk about briefly here was something that, and I hope pardon me if I butcher her name, Dr. Angela, was it Zikowski?
Yep. Yep.
Your interim provost and dean of faculty. When she was talking with Lois, she was talking about diversity in the curriculum, which is also one of the pillars, and was saying that diversity across the curriculum is now a requirement there. So what exactly is that, and what are the expectations from having that in for the students?
Yeah. So this is really an evolution rather than a full stop new initiative at Coe. Maybe 20 years ago or so added to our general education curriculum a requirement to take courses, and God help us, right? We're academics, so we have lists and checks, right? But it was courses across 3 categories that we labeled cultural perspectives, diverse cultural perspectives. And like anything, when you don't review it and refresh it from time to time, it maybe doesn't accomplish exactly what you're hoping to do. And maybe 5 years ago, we started a process where through our assessment of our curriculum and the co-outcomes of our students, we tried to identify what learning and what capacities, skills, knowledge a co-graduate should be exposed to during their time here at Coe, and then tried to blend and shape that to our general education requirements. And what it caused us to recognize is we needed to really focus those courses in a way that was much more intentional around diverse experiences, learning perspectives, courses, et cetera. And so our faculty had a process where they redefined those categories and changed the way that students can fulfill those categories, where we feel like our students will get a much more focused and substantive experience around diversity in all the ways it shapes the way we know, we learn, and we just will kick that off in the fall. So that was voted on this year. We're frantically trying to get everything ready to go for the fall. So when we check back in 3 years from now, we hopefully can share with you that that accomplished what we were hoping it would do. So I think an important change and should expose more students to more learning across the curriculum in a way that directly advances this opportunity. So,
when I've had a number of conversations on the record, if you will, on some of these podcasts and talking to other leaders at conferences and things, and then going back years past, we talked about why is this diversity stuff important, if you will, and at the end of the day, you guys are there for the students, right? So they're trying to go out into the workforce, and companies are demanding that the students have diverse backgrounds because they have diverse customers, not just here in the US, but, abroad. Were you guys looking at making these changes to produce better students for the workforce? Which I think probably is yes, but secondarily, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about and have a few questions to ask you about this attack on DEI, and who's going to be the allies to help you as an institution to continue to do this kind of work. I know I said a lot there, and it's not really a question, but
no, it's all good. And so lots of parts to that. So I think in some ways this all boils down to what it means to be at a small residential liberal arts college for 4 years. We like to think your world perspective is both challenged and shaped, and in some ways reaffirmed when you live with your peers as you study and gain knowledge. And that ability to be a part of a community, and really importantly, it's not necessarily that everyone's agreeing. That's not what we're doing here, right? We're not saying this is the set of learnings that you have to agree to. We do expect behavior and commitment to community, but we've even done some work this last year where we've really tried to focus on how do you build spaces where people can have open and honest conversations, right? Because another role of small liberal arts colleges is we're preparing people to be citizens in a participatory democracy, which right now doesn't seem to be going real well on any number of topics. So we've really tried to say, okay, how do we get people into conversations where they can really get to know the other person's perspectives, opinions, understandings, and have a true legitimate conversation. That's not some Twitter dunking battle or some sort of you're going to be ostracized to far corners of the campus, depending on what your beliefs are. But we're going to have a conversation, and together we hopefully are going to bring Coe forward in a way that there's a shared understanding about what we're all about. So that's my defense of it. Is you want in life, do you want more people who are around you that offer opinions and perspectives and support, or do you want less, right? And I'd always rather be at a bigger table. And I also recognize that at times chairs have not been around the table, and so let's fix that, right? But then you still got to deal with the table, right? And so that's our work is making sure that people are there at the table, feel that they have that we have their back, and try to grow together as we sort through some of these things that people are conflicted on. And I think that's the best we can do, right? Is keep people talking and trying to consider all sides, and hopefully we're having a little bit of an impact there. The one other area that we've really tried to focus the last year, maybe a little broader than that, a little longer than that, we've tried really hard to be more of an influence in the Cedar Rapids community around these issues, and the work that we're doing, some of the practices and policies that we've adopted. We're trying to share some of that work and some of those initiatives with other institutions, businesses, employers in Cedar Rapids. And our hope is that, Coe College is pretty small, but our lever in life is our graduates and our role with others, right? So our multiplier effect is our students can go out and share their experiences here and hopefully carry that with them in a way that has change in other organizations, institutions, churches, groups, communities, et cetera. So we've one of the ways we've answered that is, first of all, I think a lot of people, when they have a chance to really talk to people that are working to make places more inclusive, when they find out the extent of what you're doing, that it takes some of the concern out of it, right? I mean, there's all this, oh, this is happening. Well, not really. When you just have a conversation about what it means to build a community, it's hard to go at that real hard, right? And again, it's not a every single person's gonna be on the same page every day of every chapter. But this is why, and this is how we're doing it, and you're welcome to join. So
when I look at what's happening, and I'm not picking on Iowa because it's happening in a lot of states, but you guys, I say you guys, the people of Iowa have, I guess, there's bills advancing in the legislature there, especially for your 3 public universities to ban spending money on diversity, equity and inclusion and all that. And, you were talking about how you guys got extra funds or whatever for Jamal's position and where the money comes from all over campus. And some of the stuff I was reading, people were crying about that the diversity officers and like in the Iowa public institutions were making $750,000, as if that was, a gargantuan amount of money in the scope of things, And so we got to get rid of it. So how, you talking about in the community, you guys being part of the community, is any of this trickled over to you guys at all? I know you're private, so you are immune for some of these things, but, are there bills where they're going to try and tackle what you guys are doing? Or has there been any other impact as it relates to this?
So I think we're always certainly aware of there's a role to play where you're both responsive to and informed by your community, while at the same time uh, being who you are in your own identity, right? And so we have found opportunities to have very cooperative and productive conversations that I think gives us a chance to lay out what we're doing. And again, so much a part of this is really understanding what inclusion on college campuses looks like, and what the spirit of that is and where it's coming from. And to the extent that we've been able to just explore, again, at that table, that's really, I think, allowed people to know what Coe College's sliver of all this is. And look, there's always opportunities for people to disagree and to bring those ideas forward. And we certainly have had conversations on both sides where people don't agree with what we're doing. On any given issue, Ralph, you're going to get a call from two people, and they're not going to agree with anything you've done. That's part of it too, is just trying to let people know where this is coming from, why we do what we do, share our successes, share our failings, and try to explore from there.
I guess the other thing that I was reading about, this doesn't directly affect you guys, but with school choice now being the law of the land in Iowa, if you will. And looking at your numbers, 50% of your students are in state. So do you think long term down the road, there may be an effect on your incoming classes because of school choice in Iowa?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think that what the state is trying to do there is provide additional avenues for people to select pathways that are best for them. And we are ourselves a private institution, right? So in some ways we're private choice as well. And we receive state support to do that through the Iowa tuition grant for our in-state students. So that's worked really well at our level. I think we're hopeful that as an educational entity with a really strong teachers ed program, that we will continue to produce teachers that can go out and be a part of the entire ecosystem of learning in Iowa. And we should always be very proud of our educational opportunities in Iowa, and we've got a great slate of higher ed institutions. And so again, we'll see how it all plays out, but I recognize what's trying to be advanced there. And I will say that we get really wonderful students at Coe College from everywhere, and they each have their own story. They come from remarkably different backgrounds in terms of strength of school, type of school, home schools, private schools, charter schools, magnet schools, public schools that look a lot like the place I went. So I think really our role in all of that, and this is an evolution for higher ed as well, is we have to be better at meeting all students where they are. Rather than just thinking that they're all coming through the same pipeline. And that's our real role to play, is to assure that each student, not changing the requirements or the outcomes or the expectations, but making sure that each student has what they need to get to those expectations. And another change we made since I've been president is we created an Office of Success and Persistence, which really looks to engage each student on the social side as well as the academic side, which has been the work of our Learning Commons for several years. And so I'm comfortable that we will evolve with high school students throughout the country as they come through a very different time for them too, right? Some of them weren't in a classroom for a couple of years. We've got a lot of kids on this campus that had a very different senior year than their older siblings maybe had, and so that all plays into that same this is what we owe our students, is to be adaptable and to make sure we catch every one of them. So
hey, we're getting towards the end of time here, so I appreciate you indulging me with the questions and giving us open, heartfelt answers. I was just sitting here thinking, you were class, and I had to look this up while I was sitting here. You saying you were class of '93 at Coe. At Diverse, we do the Arthur Ashe Awards, and we've had Coe students over the years that have been selected for that. And but one of our first male winners, 1995, was a Coe student, David Simmons. I don't know if you remember him or know his name, but he was a wrestler. But he was our Arthur Ashe Student Athlete of the Year in 1995. Out of Coe.
Yep. So
you remember him?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Good. Oh wow. Great. Small world.
Yeah, indeed. But we, just thank you for the opportunity to share our story a little bit, and we appreciate the work that you do in your area there and through Diverse, and certainly I'm very grateful for the opportunity for Donald to come out there and represent Coe, and we look forward to pulling it off again and taking the steps we need to continue to evolve and be somebody that continues to do well and do it. So appreciate
we will
putting it out there for us to go after. So it helps.
Yeah. No, we will definitely keep in touch with you guys, and what you're doing is best practices. So we definitely would like to benchmark and talk about the things that you're doing for our for those at other institutions. So we'll definitely be in touch. So last question. You may have already answered. I think you said coffee, but I was going to say, what is another guilty pleasure that we need to know about yours?
Oh, another guilty pleasure. I really can space off through reading the news. I can go down a rabbit hole some mornings with the coffee in hand, where one story gets my curiosity going, and the next thing I know, I've read some stream of articles about some arcane topic that I really didn't need to know that much about. But the curiosity gets the cat from time to time. So that's another area where you got to focus from time to time. But
thank you. Yeah. I can raise my hand on that one.
No, I think it's one of the beautiful things available to us in this day and age is the ability to find information and answers and learn something new every minute of every day. And it's a blessing. So.
All right. Thank you, President Hayes.
Yeah, well, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. It's great to meet you.